Hello everybody, Ron Wildman in for Jack Ellis on Middle Georgia Spotlight. Our special guest today, the new chief, I guess you're still new.
Correct.
John Wagner of the Warner Robins Police Department. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today. Appreciate it, and good seeing you again.
That's a rough business to be in. What possesses a person to be a police officer?
Well, it's a calling. That's pretty much the way I see it. I've been doing it for 28 years, and it's just something that gets in your blood, and as far as I go. But it is definitely a calling. People find out that it may not necessarily be for them once they get into the job. But again, it's a nice family atmosphere. We all have to be there for each other. But again, you call it a profession, and it very much is. But once you get in that profession, there's so many things that you see and maybe want to unsee, and that calling gets you to come back day in and day out.
Being a news reporter over the years and working with the police department over the years, I saw both sides of everything.
Right.
And there's some things, like you say, you don't want to see.
Correct.
And that would involve crime and domestic problems and et cetera.
Right. Yeah, you get to see wonderful things happen sometimes, and then absolutely terrible things. Your worst fear is to have to go knock on a door and tell a parent that something happened to their child. Suicide's another terrible thing, and you're catching people at their worst. We kind of joke around that everybody loves a fireman and not necessarily the policeman, because the fireman is there and they put out the fire and everything is great, but the police officer there is there sometimes and having to take away people, and it doesn't necessarily look good. But again, as far as unseeing things, we make sure that we work with officers and make sure that their well-being is taken care of and their family is all right. Because when you lay down at night and you close your eyes, sometimes you re-see those things. So I know in New York they've had numerous suicides this past summer, and we just want to. There's a push from the International Association of Chiefs of Police to really look after the wellness of your officers, whether it's giving them employee assistance or somebody to talk to, or we have peer review teams that we actually can speak with other officers, or crisis intervention teams. So many different things that we need to do to make sure that we look after our officers and keep them safe.
How do you do that? You have meetings? You have family get-togethers?
Definitely family get-togethers. We have a kickball team right now, and who knew that just the game of kickball would bring a group of men and women together. So it's fun. You can get out there and laugh, and you kind of forget about what happened during the day, and sometimes make fun of each other. But it's really nice. But there are times where you'll find the officer will go off with a supervisor or a field training officer that he felt really comfortable with, or just a friend, and speak about things. You may have had to work an accident involving a child, or you've had to do mouth-to-mouth on a child. Things like that are very traumatic. And especially if you have a child at home. I didn't really get it until I actually had a child. But those things linger with the officer when they go home. And you hug your child and your wife a little bit tighter that night, but those things still replay in your mind. And in some cases, just talking about it and getting it out is the best thing, because it could spur problems later on, whether it's in their own family. Divorce is high in law enforcement. It may spur things like events of use of force. Is there much more aggression coming out of that officer? So there's really been a push in law enforcement that we are looking after the wellness of these officers, and that we're giving them the resources to make sure that we're taking care of them.
More than ever, the spotlight seems to be on the officer and tactics used to carry out their job.
Correct.
Do you feel that?
Yes, very much so. Social media is something that we live with daily. Fact, we had the Barbarito shooting in Warner Robins, and we lost a great young man that was working in that restaurant. But that night, when it actually happened, it was placed out on social media just really after the event had happened, the shooting had happened. And I was notified by media because they heard about it or saw it on social media, called me and asked me about it. I had not heard about it yet, called the lieutenant who was still on his way to the scene, has lights and sirens, says, I don't know yet, I haven't gotten there yet. So social media is something that we deal with all the time, and we're under the scrutiny or the eye of that daily. You know, you talk about tactics, you have to realize that every move that you make, and I've even told this to my guys just as recently as last week in a large meeting, that every move we're making is being recorded. And of course they can go back and critique it, Monday morning quarterback thing. So make sure you're doing it right all the time.
Are you all into the cameras on the officers?
That's correct. We have all of our officers that are on the road have body-worn cameras, and any type of contact that you have with a citizen, whether on call, anything, any kind of contact, police-wise, you know, not just walking through the restaurant and saying hi to somebody or ordering food, but if you're on a call where there's some type of contact, there's a pretty large button on the front of the camera, and you tap it and you videotape your interaction with that person. You know, from a traffic stop to domestic, any type of event where we're called to, we're recording that.
What have you seen from that, the history of recording in Warner Robins?
You know, it helps us out officer safety-wise, because you keep your mind and your focus on exactly what is happening. It has gotten officers out of trouble when people have said, an officer said this or the officer did that, when indeed they did not. You can go back and look at the video footage and say that was not the case. So it works out well. It's for the safety of the public and the safety of the officer as well. And then of course you can use it for evidentiary purposes.
And critique of the officer's work.
Correct.
Because
correct.
I imagine that's a growing process.
Really, it is. And when you have as many calls as we go on in the city of Warner Robins, a supervisor will sit down, and he can't look at every video that an officer does, but so we spot check different videos of officers and see how they're doing on a traffic stop or at a domestic, or just an information report. How are they talking to the people? You know, are they practicing good officer safety? Those types of things is what we're looking for.
But for sure, if I had a perceived problem with an officer, you'd definitely look at that video.
Most definitely
if I call
so.
in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we're able to archive a lot of those videos. It does take up a tremendous amount of room, obviously, on our servers. And there is a dump period time that we do get rid of some of those. But again, yes, we can go back. I've had people that have complained about a traffic stop a year prior, and I'm able to pull that up and look at it and say, you know, this was or was not the problem. So it is worthy, and it's sad to say that. And when I used to be on the road, we didn't have cameras. We didn't even have the cameras in the car yet. And you know, if I saw somebody run a stoplight, I'd write a citation for it, and if they disagree, then we go to court. Well, the testimony that really all you had was the officer's word, and sadly we've gotten away from that. That if it's not on video, it didn't happen. So and we're finding that juries are asking specifically for videos. They want to see it as it happened.
Makes it tough, doesn't it?
It makes it tough. It makes us that much more professional, definitely so. But it does. It makes it tough.
But still, you would like your word to mean something too.
I agree. I agree. And you know, we've just like in any other profession, you have some you know, good officers, bad officers, good nurses, bad nurses, good doctors, bad doctors. You know, and not just picking on the medical field, but that brings about the fact of people wanting to question everybody and everything.
As a son of a military man,
Yes.
you moved around a lot.
I did.
But basically, you settled in Warner Robins.
Correct.
And graduate of...
At Northside High School.
All
yes.
right.
Yes. Well, Warner Robins has been my home. We, you know, father was Air Force, born at Ramey Air Force Base in Puerto Rico, but we settled back in Warner Robins, and went to Sacred Heart School through grade school, and then went to Northside High School for high school, and then after that, people joked after I graduated from high school, some people say, well, you know, they go on their senior trip. They asked me, where'd you go on your senior trip? I said, I went to Paris. They said, Paris? Yeah, I went to Paris Island, South Carolina for Marine Corps boot camp. I joined the Marine Corps Reserves so I could go to college as well. And, you know, that worked out very well for me.
When did you get the desire to be a police officer?
Well, I graduated from, at that time I was making junior college with my associate, and went to Georgia College in Milledgeville, and had a taste of law. That's really what I was looking for, and my original thought was to be a JAG officer in the Marine Corps as an officer. And during this whole time, I'm doing my drills with the Marine Corps Reserves, so I get to my last quarter at Georgia College, and it was Thanksgiving holiday week. We were already out of the dorm, the school was closed, and I went to my reserve unit that weekend, and I'd already set myself up for an internship at the Warner Robins Police Department, just to fulfill the hours for my courses. So, and what was really neat is at that time, it was Chief George Johnson was the police chief there, and he was prior Marine Corps. So, you know, we had a tie there as well. And when I was away during Thanksgiving, we had to go to our drill, and that weekend there was a lot of brass up there, and we were at NAS Atlanta, which is up in Marietta, and they came to us and said, you're being activated to go to the Persian Gulf. And that time it was Desert Shield, and of course once the war started it was Desert Storm. So we had Thanksgiving, and that Friday or that weekend I had to be back up in Atlanta, and I had to drop everything with school. I had to notify the police department that I would not be able to be there for that next semester, that I had to go, and Police Chief George Johnson said, that's okay, when it's over with you come back, we've got a spot for you. And anyhow, left, came back, and was able to do that internship. And once I got into the police department, was working that internship, the bug kind of bit me. It was in my blood. I wanted to help people. I enjoy the military structure of the police department. And while I was in that internship, they were doing a hiring process. I said, well, I'll go ahead and go out for it. And was hired, and 28 years later, August of this month, you know, I get to be named Chief of Police, so it's pretty neat.
You've been a high-ranking officer for quite a few years now.
Yes, sir.
So you were in the middle of the decision-making and
Right.
things like that. Currently, the latest I know, you're short officers, as is almost every department
Right.
around here. And what can we do about that?
People are not knocking down the doors to be law enforcement officers anywhere, whether it's Middle Georgia, or whether it's Warner Robins, Middle Georgia, it's nationally. There's a trooper friend of mine that she works in recruiting for the Georgia State Patrol, and she's been to New York and said that there's departments coming from Oregon to recruit officers. So, you know, I think in some of the thought is that pay is definitely a factor in it. Many agencies are very low paid. We have been blessed that we were able to get a raise just really recently for the officers, which makes us able to compete with other agencies that are large as well. But I do think also the social media side of it, to see some of the abuse they get. You know, I think that hurts. I really do. I kind of call out some of the schools that have a criminal justice program, and you know, part of your recruiting process is to go to these colleges and see if you can recruit people out. And it's hard to recruit a college graduate for $34,000, $36,000 when they're thinking, I want to go work for the feds and make $50,000, $60,000 starting. Or in some places you can make more at Best Buy than your starting salary as an officer. Now, luckily, we're not that way, but it is for a lot of departments, and it's not a normal job. I mean, you may work your 12 hours, but during your off time, there's training and there's court. I mean, so you do a lot of things that in some cases you may not be paid for, but it's a tough job. It really is, and people just are not knocking down our doors for it.
And a lot of that interfering with family life.
It does. It really does. There's been many days that I have missed special events with my family, being called out for something. 2 Christmases ago, I was called out. But those are things that you have to do, and luckily I have a wonderful family that realize that sacrifice is part of the job. And but you do, and I've done everything I can, and try to push with my officers also that family is number one, and if you can, to make sure that we work with them to make sure that they're able to get to their special events with their family.
As are the folks in the military.
Exactly.
You marry into it.
Right, and it almost mirrors itself. My wife is a military brat, so she does understand where I come from when we're getting called out or getting the phone calls in the middle of the night, have to go to training out of town, things like that.
How do you work your children in?
It's lucky my son is now 16. He's now driving himself. But we make it work. You tag team out with each other. But I've made it something that I've always wanted to do is make sure that I am with my child, whether it's at a game or wherever. I am giving him time, and I don't want it to be like I'm the absent father. So you make time for your child. You may be tired, but you're going to make time for them.
You got some folks out there that might be interested in joining up. What would you tell them these days?
Definitely do a ride along. We just had recently an officer that we've trained and got him on the road in field training, and he's come back and said, I don't think this is the job for me. And yes, we put a lot of effort into it, but I appreciate the fact that he's telling me this isn't the job. It's saving him potentially from harm. It's saving other officers that he potentially could have backed up from harm, and of course the citizens who are wanting him to act, just in case he did not. So I appreciate that, but it's not necessarily for everybody. But what I would suggest is to do a ride along with an officer, and we also have a program called Citizens Police Academy, and actually I went through that when I was in junior college. It's a great snippet weekly for about 8 to 10 weeks. And you get each division comes in for an hour or two each week, and they come in and speak about investigations or traffic laws, traffic accidents, school resource, forensics, training, and they get a taste of what we actually see, and they learn a little bit of why we didn't arrest that person when they think we should, or why we didn't write that ticket when we should have. And what works out for us is they're able to then go out into the community and say, hey, this is the real reason why they would do things. And they're a really good cheerleader for us. But I would definitely say that a person needs to come down and do a ride along and see exactly what the job is about.
Just call down or come on down to the police headquarters?
Just give us a call and let us know ahead of time that you'd like to come. Of course, we're open 24/7. And what we'll do, you bring your license, and we make sure that you're not wanted for anything, and come down and ride for a couple hours.
Speaking of that headquarters,
yes,
it's down there right across from Robins Air Force Base.
Yes.
Beautiful facility.
Beautiful.
Back when I came here in the late 60s, the old police department was down there on the street. It looked like something along the border.
Right.
The border police department did.
Exactly.
And they moved up towards City Hall, and now they got the fabulous center.
Right. We were really lucky to have that center. I never thought I'd actually get to see it before retirement, and it's absolutely beautiful. The old police department, we always joked it was when it rained inside. When it was cold outside, it was cold. When it was warm outside, it was warm. We just couldn't get it together as far as that building goes. It served its purpose, definitely. A lot of great memories there. It's now been knocked down, but the new police department is beautiful. It's functionable, and it works for us. So we're very pleased to have it.
We're not just traffic or robberies, but there's a lot of detective work involved in your department.
Correct. We answer a tremendous amount of calls, and I think this morning I did the stats on it, and we answered like 261 calls. Well, a lot of those calls generate reports. Those reports that are generated then go to investigations where they read through, and not every report is something that is investigated. If you have no idea, and there's absolutely no factors that you could look at to investigate, you know, you're just going to sit with a piece of paper and the case is going to be open. So you need to get reports that actually have some solvability factors. And that's what we look at in all of our cases that we get, that there's some solvability factors, that we can find somebody who's actually may have done these things. But yeah, we get a tremendous amount of reports from shoplifting to, you know, theft by taking, burglaries on the property side, to aggravated assaults and up on property crimes. I mean, on people crimes.
What about the crime situation in Warner Robins these days?
You know, we are now trending nationally of some of the violence going down. And I don't want to jinx myself. A lot of us are pretty superstitious about that, but we're looking good. Warner Robins has historically been high in property crimes. Don't know why. We tell people to lock up your bicycles and your trimmers and edgers and lawnmowers, but that's a good number of things that are stolen because they leave them out there in the yard or in the garage, easy pickings. But our violent crime has gone down in some areas, but our armed robbery and aggravated assaults have gone are still up higher than we'd like.
How much does drug use play in that?
Well, that would be my next step I'd go to. The drug trade definitely pushes that violence up. Between drugs and the mental health problem that we have, it really keeps us busy. And again, drugs fuel a lot of these crimes. From I need my money to buy my next hit, so they're doing a burglary, to I need lots of money and I'm going to go try to rob a store, or rob a restaurant. And you know, it's terrible. It really is. And in some cases they're hard to predict or prevent. So we put a lot on the residents or the business owners to do what they can to lessen their chances of being victims.
Seems like every time you have a spree of stolen cars or break-in of cars,
right,
the cars were unlocked.
Oh yes. I always say that there's a group of people. We go to work doing reputable things. Some people go to work doing unreputable things, such as going through example of the Walmart Plaza or an apartment complex, of going along, and their job is to feel the door handles, and if a door handle opens, well, then that's their invitation to go in and see what you've left. Sadly, people leave their purses, their wallets, sometimes their keys, a gun or computer, gifts in their cars that you know, really you wish they'd take them inside and lock them up. But you have people that go along and actually do that. And that's specifically called entering autos. And when you clear an entering auto case, you've probably have solved, in essence, 20 or 30 at a time, because they do so many. And I do believe that 20% of your criminals are doing 80% of your crime.
So how do you prevent crime, or is that possible?
Well, you know, the fire department has it together.
Everybody thinks you can prevent it too.
And it's really hard to do. Fire department they have legislation where there's sprinklers in buildings, there's fireproof couches, and there's fireproof walls and alarms, and they've got it figured out. Law enforcement is still trying to figure it out, and of course laws are written by legislators, and you know, law enforcement can only do the enforcement side of it, and trying to prevent a lot of things. You know, you just can't say, okay, once you catch them, they just got to stay in jail, because a lot of them are recidivists and they come right back out and they're better, and they may even, you know, step up and do something worse. But you know, we try to do our best with patrols, and I really push blue lights. I do believe that traffic stops prevent quite a bit of crimes, just because you see the blue lights, and a lot of people that are criminals do not want to associate with the officers are out or and doing things, and they may stop me. But I am a proponent of making sure there are blue lights out and stopping people, talking to them what's going on. But even your traffic stops, you can prevent a lot of crime that, as silly as it sounds, but you know, they're running red lights or they've got equipment violations, and they're not paying attention to different things, and you may run up on one and get lucky. But we also put it on the business owners and the homeowners that don't be a victim. You know, be self-aware of where you're at and what you're doing. Don't go along blindly. I know, again, we're talking about social media and seeing these phones. You know, people are so into what's going on with their phone that they lose focus of everything. And you know, you can walk up on a person, they never even know you were there. So you know, we do ask people to just please be careful, lock their doors, and be self-aware. But we're trying to do our job as far as making sure we're doing our patrols, going around. But City of Warner Robins is 37 square miles. That's a lot of land for us to cover. So you know, you try to have a good balance of law enforcement and citizens making sure they're taking care of themselves.
Seems like we're in an era of these mass shootings, so to speak.
Right.
What kind of preparations do you make for something like that?
You know, the big thing is of course active shooters in schools. So we have trained over and over for active shooters in the school. Now you're seeing them at the Walmart or the Garlic Festival in California or the bar in Dayton, Ohio. You know, you're seeing those different things. The tactics really do go over and overlap. So we know we can do those things, and we practice for that. But it's funny, we have gone from, if you look at Columbine, where they had the school shootings there, and the thought was, or the tactics was, let's wait for the SWAT team to get there and then go in. Well, it's already over with by the time the SWAT team gets there. So you find that you have a lot of police departments and sheriff's departments and state troopers. We pretty well train the same way, and we know if something goes on, whether it's at a school or a business, that the first ones there are going to be the first ones in to go after the threat. We've gone from waiting on a SWAT team to getting there and helping the wounded, and then going to the threat, to just going past the wounded and stopping the threat, and then going back and helping people. But we know it's going to be a blended response. It may be a police officer with a deputy and another police officer from another jurisdiction, maybe a trooper, all going in at the same time. So you know, we prepare for that, and we make sure that we work together. We know our fellow law enforcement officers around here, so it will work out well. I really do, and I hope it never comes down to that. But we don't train for if, we train for when it happens. So
We have about a minute to go. You're short how many officers?
We're right now short 8, but I will have 2 starting on Monday, so that'll bring me down to 6. And then I have another interview with 2 more, so hopefully that will bring it down even that more. We are looking good at Warner Robins Police Department, and I hope by the time budget time comes back around, I'll be asking for more officers because we've already filled the positions that we were allotted.
And your support from mayor and council?
I've had great support from mayor and council. They've been there for me, and they listened to me during this budget time and what we need, so very pleased with that. You know, I'm working hard for them. I'm keeping them in the loop as to what's going on.
Chief John Wagner,
Thank
congratulations on your elevation to chief and in the future too.
Thank you so much, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm Ron Wildman here at WMUB TV.